I know my hair's a frizzy mess. My hairdryer decided to break as I was halfway through drying it 20 minutes ago when I came out the shower. It's messy, it's frizzy, we've addressed it, now let's move on. Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and there has been something that has been fascinating me lately. And it might not be fascinating to anybody else, but I'm certainly finding it this way. And that is, with my editing process at the moment, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting more and more feedback from my beta readers, which is fantastic and terrifying. Fantastic as in, hey, I've got someone to talk to about my work now and listen to the criticisms and learn how to improve my work, and then cry about those criticisms later in my own private time. But it'll all work out in the end. It'll all work out in the end. Please let it all work out in the end. Then it's terrifying because I'm starting to see more and more things that I didn't before, especially since I've had time to sort of take myself away from the project and just have a bit of a breather. And I'm getting to a point where I'm second guessing everything, and that's not a fun place to be in. We've all been there, and with Camp NaNoWriMo just in a couple of weeks' time, it's going to get worse, and fun times ahead. Something that I found with talking to my beta readers is that something that they've all said, and I do own up to this one well and truly, is that the beginning is a bit of a slow burn and doesn't really hint too much of the supernatural that is going to be happening later on in the story. And I completely get that. But then I was thinking, well, I had this in mind. I had this supernatural, with demons and stuff story planned from the start. So why has it become a slow burn to get through the beginning to get there? And I was thinking for a while, so well, I planned this story. I thought I dropped hints and stuff in there of what was gonna, be happening without being like, red flags alert, this is what's coming. But then it kind of hit me. There are two very different kinds of writing. Like, as you know, a good chunk of this story was written during NaNoWriMo, and then the rest was sort of pieced together in the months following. That slow burn is coming from the NaNoWriMo chunk. And then the bits afterwards, when the story's actually getting going and, the action's building up and you're coming to more of the, the meat of the story, that was mostly done after NaNoWriMo. So, is it just a pacing issue, or is it a time issue? And this is what was fascinating me, is that when you're in NaNoWriMo, you have, if you're a pants plotter like me, you have a roundabout idea of where the story's gonna go, you have a really bare bones, the basic of basic bitches of her chapter plans, but the actual meat of the planning is just free flow. Whatever happens, happens as long as it hits these points that you've planned along the way. If you're a plotter, then you have everything sorted. Everything is fine. I wish I had that mindset, I really do. But you do have this idea of where you're going with the story and how to get there. And when you're in NaNoWriMo, you have to do these things, but you don't have, no one can exactly pinpoint plan how many words are going to be in each scene and chapter and stuff like that. That part is near impossible to plan. So it got me thinking, during NaNoWriMo, when you have a plan, but you also have a word count and a time limit, are you subconsciously overwriting and writing so much more than what you normally would, just to bulk out your target for that day? And for me personally, I think that's the case. Because, see, when you're rereading it, you're still fully aware of everything that happens in this story, where the characters are going to go, what's going on, what's going to happen, etc. So it's very hard to separate yourself. So you're reading it thinking, yeah, I know this bit's going to happen, and I know this bit's going to happen, so yeah, we'll just read this bit for now and wait till we get there. But your readers aren't going to know what's around the corner. They aren't going to know that something supernatural, magical, devastating is going to be around the corner. They're just reading what they're reading in that moment. And sometimes that moment can go on a bit too long. And I think that's what's happened with me. If it was just one person saying this, then obviously I wouldn't dismiss it. I would take it seriously and look over it in more detail. But the fact that every single one of my beta readers has said, yeah, the beginning is a bit of a slow burn, and then suddenly the supernatural element comes in, it's a bit jarring. Did you plan for that? No. I think, genuinely, there are two kinds of writing. You're in NaNoWriMo and you are trying to reach a target for the day, so you are overwriting and over-describing, and maybe adding scenes that don't really have much relevance or desperately need to be rewritten maybe somewhere else, just to try and get the flow into a more readable pace. And I'm just there thinking, oh my god, I'm so stupid. I've done nano mode writing instead of is this readable writing? But then out of nowhere, suddenly they're like, oh yeah, but as soon as you hit this point, the pacing is much better. You can see that this is going to lead to this. You're not quite sure what's going to happen here, but then you're looking for clues. You know, it does make sense. But then I'm looking at it thinking, well, that's the point that Nano finished. And I was able to just write as me again. I wasn't writing as me, the Nano participant that has to reach a certain amount of words, especially when I gave myself such a big target of 80,000, which I didn't reach. I was so close. I was so close. But I was in that Nano mode of get as many words out as possible, and as long as you're sort of sticking to your plan, then it'll be okay when you're editing later. But now I'm seeing that I've actually screwed myself, because now I need to read over things in much more detail to see how I can whittle it down and shift things around so it can actually be more decently paced and hint more towards the supernatural aspect rather than just being so stuck in the moment. I was saying everyone should set themselves goals. Everyone should say, I want to get this many words done or this many chapters done this month. I want to have this book finished by this time and then start editing it afterwards. Everyone should have goals. Ow. That is one of the main things of writing an organisation that will really get your backside in gear and get you writing. Goals and steps of how to reach those goals. However, in a short time limit and a big target, you do find yourself straying and focusing so much in one moment and one scene and going so overboard and trying to get the word counts in that you're not remembering the pacing of the story. And that is where I have failed. I'm sorry, I know I am rambling so much, but it's just fascinating to me how 1 month that has such a big influence in the writing industry and the writing community affects your writing in such a strange way, because it's so productive but also destructive. Nano mode is so productive because you do get so much done, and 9 times out of 10 you do have a finished novel to work with. But then it's destructive because your normal writing style, where you do have time to think more about pacing and development and structure, that kind of goes out the window into this free-for-all, I must get this done, I must reach this target, and it's insane, and I kind of love it and hate it at the same time. Does this mean I'm not going to be giving myself big targets for future nanos? Hell no, I'm still going to be pushing myself, because it really did help me, and it's better to work with too much than too little. It just fascinates me how my beta readers can tell where NaNoWriMo stopped based on my writing style. So the beginning is very much, I must go into so much detail about introducing these characters and what kind of mindset they're in and how they find each other, and then hint at the supernatural thing, but not quite too much because I want to keep more people interested because other things need to happen first. Demons introduced, supernatural, Nano stops. Story starts progressing at a much more calm and cohesive tone. Did Nano screw me over? No. It gave me the push I needed and brought back this writing spark that I've been missing for so long. It has given me much more material to work with, it made me complete so much more of the story than I normally would, and it even, sparked me to make this channel, which a lot of you have been so supportive over, and thank you so much. But did Nano make my editing process much more difficult than it needed to be? Yes. Yes, it did. And that is not the fault of the holiday whatsoever, because Nano is Nano. You can't change it, you can't go too insane and overthink it, she says as she's making a video about it. You just have to accept it for what it is and deal with the consequences after, and that is what I'm doing. And I should be... well, that's the thing, I am scared about editing because I hate editing so much. So much. But it has brought so many new things to light, like this issue, for example. And I can't help but be intrigued by it all. This mindset of the panic, free-for-all, get the word count writing to calm, do things at your own pace, but still with a target in mind mindset. They're two so very different things, and yet Nano seems to make them collide in the weirdest way. Am I making any sense to any of you? I am so sorry if I'm not. This went on a weird little tangent, but I just needed to talk about it. And I'm pretty sure I am not the only one out there. I know, have you had this thing where you're reading over your work from NaNoWriMo and thinking, God, there is just so much, how am I going to deal with this? And then compare it to your writing any other time when you're like, okay, there's not as much to work with, but it's a lot more coherent. It's kind of like a split personality. Two very different writers are living in your head, and depending on the time of the year and what your goals are, it depends which one's going to come out to play. And come on, I cannot sound too insane on that one, because we're writers, we create millions of characters, for God's sake. We have a whole colony living up here. So brings the question, where do I go from here? See, now the little voice of anxiety in my head is screaming at me, just delete the whole thing and start again. It was rubbish anyway. No, I'm not doing that. Shove off. Here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to let my beta readers carry on reading, carry on storing up their feedback, and I will still carry on writing the sequel and planning more of the sister series. I will still keep going as I normally am, and then when they've finished and they can pinpoint what needs to be adjusted and I can compare all of the different levels of advice, then I will be going back to the first book and not rewriting and readjusting whatever needs to be readjusted and rewriting certain scenes to fit this more cohesive tone that I've apparently adopted in my regular writing time than I did in my Nano time. It's chaotic, but as is the life of a writer trying to get by. I'm going to end this video here before I ramble on even more than I already have, but let me know what you think. Do you have two very different writing styles depending on if it's NaNoWriMo or if it's your own time? Is there anything that really stands out from these two different modes, and what do you do when you get called out on it? I'm really fascinated by this project and this topic, and it wasn't one I expected to really talk about, but then I'm having fun, so here we are. So it's back to the drawing board for a few scenes, which I was expecting to do anyway. I completely understood that. It was never going to be a one draft is all you're going to need kind of thing. I knew that from the beginning. But I will wait until my beta readers have completely finished so that we can go over everything in detail and just get it all over and done with so that my anxious little heart can just deal with it as soon as possible. And then we will see where we go from there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this duo mode of writing, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, my scribblers.